Hello and welcome to Vodka Fueled Engineering, episode 3 of Out of Place But Effective. For this little video, we're going to be looking at the Russians. Now, you might be confused. What the heck is in front of me? What is this massive... what is it? This is the T35. Holy crap, what is this thing? Even me looking at it, this is a massive vehicle. This is one of the last land battleships from the Second World War. Russia made them mostly as a propaganda vehicle for them to parade around in the streets. And it was effective at doing just that. Because as you can see by its massive size, they had like 5 of them going through the street at one time. It would just be like, oh look, we are so powerful. And it was often used in posters for the Russians. You can often see it in the background with them showing. This is me just driving it around, giving you an idea of what it would have looked like. As you can hear, I am flipping through a book. So, this thing has a crew of 10. As you can see, you have 5 different turrets. 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and 1 in the center. So, you have 2 45mm guns. Those are the smaller turrets. Turrets being... I did not get to the run I wanted. Here we are. Being one of these. This is your 45. That's going to do some work. But here's the thing. You would think, as the Russians did, more turrets equal a lot of firepower. Not really. So here's the thing. The commander's in that center turret right here. None of these turrets, they didn't make an intercom system for the tank because why would you do that? You're expecting these other gunners, so these 4 other gunners, including the one you're going, to engage either the same or different targets. As a commander, your job is to identify and retrace targets. For the 2 machine gun turrets, which are the smaller turrets, that's pretty easy. You just go, hey, if you see infantry, you engage. For the gun turrets, there's 37 millimeter guns, not 45. My apologies, but still, these 37 millimeter guns. For these 2 gunners, they're going to run into a lot of problems because you aren't able to tell them what to do, and sometimes they're not going to see everything. So most commanders of this vehicle hated their life because it took a lot of work to simply just do engagements. Let's see if I can actually find some decent numbers. A lot of this episode will be me kind of running through speculation because some reports are a little harder to find for the Russians. Because looking at... we don't actually have production model numbers of them. Because one of my books, Allied Tanks World War II, 1939 to 1945, does have American and British and even French numbers. Wow. This one does not. Yeah. But it's still... it's a lot of work. It did have a smaller variant, being the T28, which has the same 76mm gun, which was a stub nose, so it wasn't going to be that effective, but good at providing infantry support. And the Russians mostly made this to be a propaganda tank for the T-35. But the T-28 did see more combat, and they were, as you can probably guess, used in combat. They just didn't see much use due to the fact of the Germans saw them and went, cool, die, and exploded. Here's the T28. This is actually an upgraded variant with some extra turret armor, as you can see. And all of them did have this star, because, you know, Russia, they felt like putting a star there, because why not? This one is a 6-man crew, so much less than the crew. But the idea behind this one, from what I'm guessing, is the machine guns face forward while the gun fires shrapnel or heat rounds and is engaging infantry, which was effective, but still wasn't going to get the job done compared to what the Germans were placing. But this was the beginning of their problem. But now to talk about one vehicle that was a very funky but still one they used. The KV-1 series, or KV series, was one of their best. But the KV-2 was one of the weird ones. Only around... This is from pure guessing. I mean, not pure guessing. This number is highly debated. The 334 examples of this vehicle were made. The vehicle was too slow and not able to keep up with fast-moving armored combat like what was there, but it still scared the crap out of the Germans. So this is the bunker-killing weapon. I'm not going to try and shoot things from range with this thing because this round is funky. Actually, I'll try. But this is an anti... It would fire these massive 152mm semi-armor piercing cap ballistic shell, which is big for what the time was, because these were developed mostly in 1941, and none of them survived the war intact. So there are no KV-2s around there. KV-2 turrets that many Russians have found as I try and wobble around with this gun. And as you can see, I just hit the top of that thing. I mean, the Panzer IV and 8. Die. Alright, it's effective. And this is a howitzer, by the way. As I hit the wrong button. So as you can see, it's massive. It's a 6-man crew with 2-piece ammunition. And it was actually meant to fight against Finnish bunkers. All were lost in the opening stages of Barbarossa. But this is just one of the massive German bunker busters that were made. Next up, we're going to move on to a vehicle I have even less information about. I close a book and open another. So, as you know, the KV-1 or KV series was the Germans' nightmare. They didn't know how to beat it. Why is that? Well, it's because it was massive. Massive, and its armor was thick enough to stop most even German guns. Field guns at the time. Most time they'd either avoid the thing or just do something else. But it did have a competitor. Something not many people knew about. Welcome to another land ship. The SMK or T-100. Excuse me. So this thing, as you can tell, is massive. It's even bigger than the T-35. The T-35 was 31.5 feet, while this thing is actually shorter, being at 29.3 feet, so that's my bad. The biggest difference is this has 6 crew. One of the variants actually had 7 crew. This one actually is the 7 crew, while one other variant had 6. As you can tell, you have this 76mm gun here, a 45 here, and a nice fun Dershka back here, as well as a whole bunch of ammunition. As you can tell, it looked similar to the KV-1, just very longer and a lot taller. Because the KV-1 itself was 10 feet tall, about, while the SMK was about, the KV-1 was actually 8 feet, while the SMK was 10 feet, my bad. Misreading numbers. But while it was funky because, again, multi-turret designs died in the First World War. Why they stayed around was because no one knows. But it was effective in a way. None of these actually ever saw combat. Simply because, well, it was abandoned in 1940 in favor of the KV-1 because the KV-1 was better. But it didn't die there. Because many people would think it would die there, but something else replaced it. Meet the SU-100Y. As you can tell, this thing is almost if you look closely, it's almost the exact same chassis as the T-100. It has 8 road wheels, just like the SMK. The biggest difference is the 2 turrets were removed. I'm going to be working off what I can find, and what I can find is honestly not that much. There's very little on this massive vehicle. But what I can tell you is that gun is a 130mm gun. What makes that special is the fact that this 130mm B-13 cannon isn't something meant to be used on the ground. It was something meant to be used as a naval gun. The Russians just reconverted it. So, it was made to fill the gap between in the inter-period war, to fill the gap for when they needed a bunker buster. So they looked hard for something, and yet they didn't find anything. The main reasoning? Well, this vehicle still didn't see use. Actually, it might have, it might not have. The biggest reasoning is we don't know enough information. All I know is that after the project was dropped, it got placed in a storage facility near Moscow. So, this can imply that it got placed in that storage facility and then was used during battles around Moscow, if the Russians pulled it out of storage, but I'm not sure. Or I can't confirm that. The Russian records aren't available to me. I've done as much looking as I could. That's what I can't tell you. But there's still one more vehicle. One more tank. There was also this version of the KV-2, which had a 107mm gun, which brings me to my next project. The KV series didn't die with the KV-1. The KV series eventually potentially went all the way to KV-5, but they never made it there. One vehicle managed to get produced though. The KV-220 or the T-150, being this vehicle. This vehicle was the pride and joy of Russia. Actually, no, it wasn't. It was something they made and tried to use. It's quite effective compared to its counterparts. What gave it truly the stopping power, or it did, was in potentiality, before it got converted to a bunker, it was housing a 107 instead of the onboard 85mm gun. So this vehicle should have had a 107, but the Russians, they gave it the 107, then instantly took it off the turret and put it in the ground as a turret, as I know this from a lot of pictures that I have seen. Mobility-wise, it acted like a KV and was similar to the KV-85, just different turret. As I know, this episode was a little shorter, but that's all I got. So do a little recap to fill some time. We started with the T28 and the T35, which were both the last of the heavy tank, the multi-tank designs, eventually evolving into the T-100, which died as well. The reason these vehicles died is commanding them was hard, and the T28 and the T35 were just too easily taken out by German armor at the time. The KV-2 was too heavy and couldn't maneuver, and actually its turret was overworked, which is why it was such a slow turret rotation. The KV-85 and T-150 are effective, but, well, the Russians repurposed them. KVs did make it to the end of the war, but most of the time they were used as command tanks, and it was mostly KV-1Ss, which was the fastest variant of the KV. Yeah, but still couldn't keep up with the JS tanks, or IS tanks, depending on how you want to say it. And then the SU-100Y was people digging up the T-100 series and saying, hey, look at this. We can turn it into a bunker buster. And as Vodka Fueled Engineering goes, they fueled their engineering to make vodka and did crazy things. Thank you for watching this episode, and please do come back for the next episode, which is The Island Nations Make Tanks. We'll be talking about some fun vehicles next time. Please do have a good day.